Time is now 9:30. I will call the June 12th, 2018 meeting of the Millcreek Township Board of Supervisors to order. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda is public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications. Would anyone care to address the board regarding today's agenda? All right, hearing none. Oh. Councilwoman, I need you to step up to the mic and, sure, but if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, I need your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Yes. Good morning. Kathy Patika. I reside in Millcreek, Erie County Council. I just wanted to speak briefly regarding item on the agenda number 13. And I want to congratulate Millcreek Township for the effort that they have put forward, as they always do, in collaborative efforts with other municipalities. And in this case, my knowledge falls more with the emergency traffic signal preemptive system. And with the passage of this and the fact that you have put forth an effort to get matching funds to make Millcreek Township residents safe, whether they travel throughout the county or others come into Millcreek. And I also want to mention, while I'm here, is that Erie County Council will be holding our council meeting on the road this evening at the former Vernondale School, which is now Voices for Independence on Wilkins Road. And that effort and the facility there on Wilkins Road is another example of what a wonderful job Millcreek Township has done in a collaborative effort. In that case, it worked with Millcreek Township, the school district, and a private industry. So I would like you all to know that you're invited, and I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing in these efforts. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patika.
Would anyone else care to comment on today's agenda? All right. Hearing none, next item is the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the May 22nd, 2018 minutes for that evening's meeting?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve as drafted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The board also held a special meeting on May 24th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Yes, I will also move to approve those as drafted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next on our agenda is presentation of the 2017 financial statements by Felix.
bills?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to approve the bills?
Yeah, I'll move to we pay the bills in that batch.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Now it's time for presentation of the 2017 financial statements by Felix and Gleckler, PC.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Steve Falk, and this is Natalie Heberlein. She also came with me, and we're going to go over the highlights of the Millcreek Township financial statements as of December 31st, 2017. In the first slide, we're going to talk about management's responsibility, and that is for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and also the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation of those financial statements. The next slide, the auditor's responsibility is to perform the audit in accordance with the following auditing standards: the generally accepted auditing standards and also government auditing standards, and then express opinions on the financial statements based on our audit. Now, the independent auditor's report of this, we have audited the following financial statements: the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information, also known as the trust and agency funds. And our opinion on those financial statements is that they present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Millcreek Township as of December 31st, 2017. So in other words, a clean opinion, which is good. We're also required to have other communications with the supervisors. We're pleased to say we encountered no difficulties in performing the audit. We noted no material past journal entries for the year ended December 31st, 2017. We also noted no disagreements with management or significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the township's internal control, which is great. Next slides, we're going to hit some of the highlights of the numbers there. So we'll start with the general fund balance sheet as of 12/31/17. We had total assets of $31,783,000. Total liabilities and deferred inflows of resources of $3,642,000. So left us with the following designations of fund balance. We had non-spendable of $213,000. Restricted for tax appeals of $135,000. Committed for capital projects of $19,933,000. Committed for the subsequent year's budget of $4,566,000, which left us with unassigned fund balance of $3,291,000, or about 1.5 months of reserves. Next slide compares our budget versus the actual comparison for revenues and expenditures for 2017. We had total budgeted revenues of $27,239,000. Total actual revenues of $27,435,000. We had budgeted expenditures of $28,871,000, and our actual expenditures were $26,426,000. On the next slide, so basically we budgeted for a change in fund balance, a decrease of $1.5 million. And our actual change in fund balance was $1.2 million to the good. And the next slide, we'll kind of talk about why some of that happened. On the revenue side, our positive variance from the budget related to better than anticipated real estate tax collections. And on the expenditures, we had a positive variance from the budget related to mainly savings related to lower health insurance costs and also less spending required for major equipment and township projects. Our next slide is going to discuss the sewer revenue fund and highlight the statement of revenues, expenses, and the changes in net position. We had operating revenue of $10,207,000. Operating expenses of $8,505,000, which produced operating income of $1,700,000. We also had non-operating expenses of $94,000, transfers out of $17,000, and contributions for the sewer authority of $1,670,000 related to sewer system additions during the year. So that brought us to an overall positive change in net position of $3,259,000 for the sewer fund. And just some other notes related to this year and next year. The Penvest loan is going to be paid off during 2018. Our police and employees pension is 95.81% funded, which is great. Our investments experienced an approximate 13% return on investment for 2017. And as of 12/31/17, there's still $8 million owed to the township related to the sale of the water authority. Those are received in $1 million installments for the next 8 years. And also going forward for 18, this is going to impact your 18 financial statements. GASB 75 talks about other post-employment benefits. Basically, this is related to the pension footnote, which we saw a couple years back. It added some new note disclosures and also some recognition of deferred inflows and outflows related to that OPEB liability. So we'll see a little bit of a change on next year's financial statements related to that. Does anyone have any other questions regarding these?
Just a quick question for you regarding the MMO for the employees. That's an increase that we have there as far as how much we're contributing now. Because I think we had 94% last year. You recall what it was?
I don't remember.
I think
what
we've
it was.
increased,
It went up, though.
getting better and better
that
on
investment
that.
income, yeah, the investment, you know,
Which
doing
is-
as well as it did. Yeah,
Yeah,
It's,
of course
we've
it's-
seen that across the board where almost everyone.
Right, and usually, as we know, with MMO obligations, that's where a lot of municipalities run into trouble.
Exactly.
And it's just because of that there. So we're doing very well on that then. So.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem.
Yep. Good to hear that. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments from the board?
No.
Mrs. Jaczewski, does this require an action by the board to accept the report?
Yeah, we probably should, just to make it formal.
Is there a motion to approve the auditor's report?
Yes, I'll move to approve the 2017 auditor's report as prepared.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank Mark and his staff for helping us out during the audit. We really appreciate their help, and they make it, as seamless as an audit can be. So, appreciate that. All right.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Good.
Next item on our agenda is the Stormwater Pollutant Reduction Plan, or PRP, presentation by Amick Foster Wheeling.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Mowry with Wood Environment and Infrastructure. We worked on your draft pollutant reduction plan, and I'm here to talk through that and answer any questions you may have. First, I want to go through some definitions that are associated with your stormwater and pollutant reduction plan. NPDES stands for the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. That is the program through the Clean Water Act that created the MS4 permit, which controls the stormwater discharges from the township. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. Since that's a mouthful, they shortened it to MS4. And what MS4 stands for, it's your conveyance system, the man-made system that discharges stormwater into the local streams. Impaired water bodies are bodies of water that don't meet water quality standards, and those are assessed by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. And in Millcreek, there are 6 streams, I'm going to get into this in more detail later, that are impaired for sediment. And then pollutant reduction plan is abbreviated PRP, so I'll be calling it a PRP for the rest of this presentation. It is required by DEP for the township's next MS4 permit, which will go into effect January 1st, 2019. First, a little bit about the township MS4 program. The township, as I said before, the current permit expires December 31st, 2018, and your new permit will go into effect in 2019. The application for this permit is due on July 4th, and along with that application, the PRP is also required to be submitted. So what is an MS4 program? It's a program to improve the quality of the stormwater being discharged from the township MS4, and it covers 6 minimum control measures. It's public education and outreach, and then also that covers your education to let the citizens know how they can improve water quality through their practices and make sure that they're aware of the issues in the township. Public participation and involvement is to hold activities that your citizens can be involved in to help improve the water quality through different events that you may hold, and also a public meeting such as this one. Illicit discharge detection and elimination. The township is required to do inspections to make sure that there aren't any illicit connections into the storm sewer where something that is not stormwater might be discharged into the storm sewer system. Construction sites, this is generally your erosion and sediment control program during construction to make sure that you're not discharging a lot of sediment associated with construction. And then post-construction, if you have stormwater management facilities, the township needs to make sure that those facilities are maintained and operating as they were designed. And then the final MCM, pollution prevention and good housekeeping. This is training your staff to make sure that they are following good practices, on sites or during projects. So DEP has thrown something new into your MS4 program in this new permit, and that is requiring the PRP. So they have done their assessments of streams in the township and have found that 6 streams are classified as impaired for sediment. And they did this assessment using an assessment of the benthic macroinvertebrates, which are the small insects that live in the stream, and they take a sampling of the insects in the stream, and based on the types of insects, whether they're tolerant or intolerant, they make a determination as to the water quality. And they made an assessment that sediment is the stressor that is causing the problems with the benthic macroinvertebrates. And the requirement in the new permit is, because the streams are impaired for sediment, the township has to reduce sediment by 10% over the next 5-year permit. This map shows the location of the waters that were assessed as impaired for sediment. So there are 6 streams: Wilkins Run, Marshall Run, Scott Run, Cascade Creek, Millcreek, and Walnut Creek. The red streams show the locations that DEP has classified as impaired. So the PRP requirement. So the first step to determining what that 10% reduction would be is to determine what the existing load is. And DEP provided a framework for determining that, and it's basically a loading based on impervious and pervious surfaces, and that was used to using geographic information systems and mapping of the township to assess what the loading rate is, which is around 6 million pounds per year. So 10% of that is a little over 600,000 pounds, and so that is the goal for reductions for the township streams. So the next step that we did was to look at potential projects to reduce sediment in the township. We did field investigations. We also did desktop evaluations. We went out in the stream and out in the field and looked at many streams and potential stream restoration opportunities in the township. We worked with the township staff to identify other potential opportunities that would provide additional value by reducing flooding or other infrastructure issues. We looked at retrofits of existing flood detention basins in the township and additions of new green infrastructure, which are rain gardens or vegetated swales. What we found is that the stream restoration projects provided the biggest bang for the buck and provided the most value, reducing the most sediment for the cost involved. In the PRP, we've identified 4 stream restoration projects, and I'm going to go into more detail on those projects. But together, those projects reduce sediment by over 600,000 pounds per year. And we did this on an aggregated basis. We didn't, so this is township-wide, reducing the sediment. We didn't do it stream by stream, and that is allowed through the guidance provided by DEP. So DEP also provided other guidelines for how you cite your stream restoration projects. The streams need to be experiencing erosion currently. You can't propose a project on a stream that is in good shape. It has to be at least a minimum feet of 100 feet. And you need to address the peak flows. So the stream restoration project will need to be designed to address flows that are coming into it and address both sides of the stream channel. For stream restoration, for the project eligibility, they also, DEP has provided information about the techniques that can be used. So they don't want you, a stream restoration project is not coming in and putting the channel in a concrete channel and thereby reducing the sediment. They want you to use natural stream restoration techniques, which is a mixture of rock veins and other natural techniques to stabilize the stream banks, raise the channel and reconnect the channel if it's been downcut and eroded, to raise it back up and reconnect it to the floodplain so that larger flows will spread out into the floodplain. And ideally, they want a 35-foot minimum riparian buffer. That is an issue on several of the stream projects that we've proposed because of the nature of the stream valleys in Millcreek don't allow for that wide of a stream buffer. So we've noted that in the PRP. I wanted to show some examples of what stream restoration projects look like when they're completed, and there have been 6 phases of a stream restoration project completed on Cascade Creek, and the Pennsylvania Sea Grant website has pictures of before and after, which are shown here. So phase 1 was 500 linear feet within Frontier Park, and you can see how they've graded back the stream bank to reconnect the floodplain and to resolve the erosion that was taking place on that stream. The next one picture is of phase 3, which is 1,100 linear feet, again in Frontier Park. And you can see in the middle of the stream in the after picture where they put in a rock structure, creating a riffle structure to improve the habitat in the stream and also grading back the stream banks. And then this last one is phase 6 along West Bayfront Parkway. The sidewalk is obviously eroding. They've fixed the eroded stream bank, and it also looks like they've added some rock structures in the stream as well. So those are what typical stream restoration projects would look like when they're completed. And now moving on to the proposed projects in the PRP. The first is the Scott Run project, which runs along the Tom Ridge Environmental Center. And this is a project that is currently under design, and a grant application is being prepared. It's a series of rock structures over about 2,000 feet of the stream, and the sediment reduction is approximately 91,000 pounds per year. I've also shown some current pictures of the current conditions along Scott Run. You can see that it is severely eroded and a very good candidate for stream restoration, and also to help stabilize those banks and protect the neighboring properties. The next project is on West 28th Street. It is behind some houses and next to some other commercial properties. The proposed project, this is something that the township staff have been looking at because there's an existing flooding problem in the area. And the proposed project would be to remove the undersized pipe and restore a channel and stabilize the downstream channel. Currently, because of the frequent flooding, there's erosion occurring over top of the pipe. So this is a good project that would alleviate flooding in the neighborhood. The sediment reduction is estimated as over 41,000 pounds per year. The pictures of the current conditions, on that upper picture you can see this is the channel on top of the existing pipe being eroded away. And then the lower picture is of the downstream channel with erosion that would be addressed during the stream restoration project. The next project is proposed at Bladen Park. It would stabilize the eroded stream channel and also protect the adjacent Edgevale Road, which currently seems to be in danger from the stream bank erosion. The proposed project would reduce sediment approximately 33,000 pounds per year. And I have some pictures of the current conditions. The picture on the left is right next to Edgevale Road, and you can see how close it is to the road, and that regrading that area and protecting the stream bank would greatly help protect the road. And there's also significant erosion along the stream banks. And then the fourth project is along Wilkins Run. The stream valley is experiencing significant erosion and is a very good candidate for stream restoration. We did field investigations there and took sediment samples in order to use a different protocol for calculating the sediment reduction associated with this project. We also coordinated with the Lake Erie Region Conservancy, the owner of the property, and they approved moving forward with this project at their meeting on May 15th. So the sediment reduction potential for this project is over 400,000 pounds per year. And as you can see from the current conditions of this area, the stream bank erosion is extreme, and there will be a very high sediment reduction associated with stabilizing this stream. Moving on to estimated costs for this. The PRP itself does not require the township to submit costs for these projects, but of course that's a very important part of planning for the future. And stream restoration costs are usually estimated on a cost per linear foot, and so we've done that estimate coming in between $850,000 and $1 million for the 4 projects. But the costs will vary depending on the number and type of structures involved in the design, so that cost will be more clear as the design for these projects is completed or progresses.
Excuse me, Lynn, are the design costs included in those cost estimates as well, or is that just construction? The 850 to $1 million, is that including design costs?
Yeah, for design and construction. So we're currently in the public comment period, which started on May 20th and will end on June 22nd. And this meeting is serving as the public hearing for the public to provide comment on the PRP. And after this meeting, after the public comment period ends on June 22nd, we'll incorporate any public comments, and the PRP will be submitted with the permit application on July 3rd. The township will have 5 years, starting with the new MS4 permit on January 1st, 2019, to implement the 4 projects. Are there any questions or comments?
Just for clarification, the comments that you're looking for from the public, those would be in written form? That's how they're going to be accepted and reviewed? There's not going to be any hearing as far as any oral presentation given by... Am I correct on that?
That's
Yeah,
what
we
today
can
is.
take questions at
Yeah,
this meeting.
yeah.
John, today serves as the hearing.
But what I'm getting at is, are we able to still
Yes.
print them in there, write them in there? That's what I'm
Yes.
getting at, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Through June 22nd, we'll be
Okay.
accepting written comments.
So the public really needs to know about that, and
Yeah.
got, 2 weeks left, I think, 2.5, something like that.
I believe
so.
there was a notification in the newspaper, and I don't
Right.
know what other.
Yeah, that's the importance, what I'm getting at there
Yeah.
is that, so.
Are there any other questions? One moment, sir. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
No, John.
Well, with that, we'll open for public comment. If anyone would like to address the board regarding this issue, please step up to the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Chuck Felix. I live at the corner of 28th and McKee, and I was certainly glad to see West 28th Street included in this list. And I'd just like to comment, I'm not sure about any of the other projects, but my neighborhood is getting flooded several times a year. So I'm not sure if the Wilkins Road or the other ones, Cascade Creek, are causing people's houses to flood or not. But if they're not, I would like to suggest moving 28th Street to the top of the list, because there is constant damage occurring at our houses because of this flooding situation. So I think the imperative to move this project to the top of the list is there, because we are hurting people, property values, we're flooding people's houses several times a year in that neighborhood. And I'm glad that it is being addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Felix. Would anyone else care to comment on PRP?
Hi, my name is Mary Kay Calavoda, and I live at 4403 West 28th Street. I'm actually here for a different reason, but as long as you're covering the flooding on 28th Street, if you could make that a priority, I am sure that the people would bless you, no doubt. What is the process for putting in a comment? Do you have an address to which to send that, or how do the comments get sent to you?
You can submit the comments to the Planning and Development Department upstairs.
Okay.
There's also a link on our website. You could email anybody from the Planning and Development Department
You
with
can
those
email
comments.
it too?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments related to PRP?
That's all I have back there.
My name is Mary Flamini. I'm a resident in the 4300 block of 28th Street. I actually had a question for the person presenting. In her slides, it simply said undersized pipe. Now, she herself said they were going to remove the undersized pipe, that was the plan. But then she spoke of restoring the downstream channel. Now, I can understand in these places in the parks and such, the emphasis is on the natural, and perhaps because comes out of the Clean Water Act, that has to be that. But I would like to hear her comments on how a natural stream would work under 26th Street, which is, of course, where the water all backs up and what causes the problems.
Sure.
Okay.
The project would need to be further designed, but the township was planning to remove that undersized pipe right behind the houses on 28th Street to provide more storage volume for the flood flows that are backing up. I mean, the project will not go the whole way down to 26th Street.
Store the water
The plan is to open up the channel, stabilize the stream banks, and provide more volume for the water to reside in the channel instead of flowing out onto the banks. Do I have that correct?
So there's nothing that is part of getting it under 26th Street eventually flowing down.
Not to my knowledge. Not as part of this. I think that, I don't know if township staff want to talk to that because.
I can address that. This specifically for the PRP is to meet the DEP requirements, and that's what this would do. Piping in any fashion doesn't comply with our MS4 requirements, or I should say our PRP requirements. So that would have to be separate from this undertaking, anything done under 26th Street.
Mr. Felix?
I'm a little confused. At least twice I've heard removing the undersized pipe. And now I'm hearing nothing. The undersized pipe is right at 26th Street. So is it yes, you're removing the undersized pipe or no?
This pipe that they're talking about is the one that parallels 28th Street that runs through the backyards. They would open up that pipe to provide more capacity there so that the water doesn't back up into the street and into the homes. So that's the undersized pipe that they're removing, naturalizing that channel to give us credit for our MS4. And then, like I said, anything further north going towards 26th Street would be addressed separately from this process.
I would suggest that they do not understand the problem that they're referring to that as the undersized pipe. The entire problem is because we have a 42-inch pipe, which is the undersized pipe down on 26th Street. The pipes along 28, those 60-inch pipes you're talking about, aren't undersized. They're just not designed as rain retention areas, is what you're talking about, making our neighborhood into a retention pond. The undersized pipe is down at 26, and at Joe's Gym, that 42-inch pipe is the undersized pipe. It's causing the entire backup. It's turned our neighborhood into a retention pond.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying there, but again, anything done there does not help us with our MS4 requirement. This does help us with our MS4 requirement and will provide additional storage so that the water stays in the stream channel and does not back up where it should not be.
Still a plan to make our neighborhood
inside a channelized area and not in streets and definitely not into homes.
Would-
When you're basically.
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, I apologize, but we do need to actually use the mic so we can get it on
Yeah,
the
we
record.
need, yeah. All I'm hearing is the rooftop.
Well, and we also need you to
Okay,
we need you to sign in and put your name in.
okay. How do you reduce sedimentation when you're dumping more water into destabilized banks? How are you going to stabilize that? Because if you have rocks as your base, the volume and the rate of flow of water is going to wipe that out anyway. So how are you going to do that?
So the vision for this project, and I brought these pictures back up, is to, so if you want to come around here so you can see. So this is the channel that is forming on top of what we're calling, I understand that you're talking about the undersized pipe at 26th Street, but this is what we're calling the undersized pipe behind the houses on West 28th Street. So this channel is eroding, and so the proposed project is to take out the pipe and make this channel larger so that this sediment is not continuing to erode this area and continue downstream.
Continue to erode because when you mix water with dirt, that's essentially a mud puddle, and you're just going to continue eroding that out. It acts like sandpaper going through there because that is not clean water. It is water that is completely laden with your sediment. So as long as you are mixing the two, okay, you're not going to have clean water, and you're going to be pulling up and scouring out more of your dirt, more of your sediment, and dumping that and causing greater impairment than if you were to keep water in clean pipes, okay, and take it to your destination, so you're not picking up all the dirt along the way and causing the erosion that you see there. Your plan is going to create more erosion, more sedimentation. How do you reconcile that with the requirements of the DEP?
It would have to be reconciled in the design itself, and so this project is not to the...
Excuse me, ma'am, we still need your name and address for the record.
They want your name and address.
Okay, my name is Lori Hurt, and I live on Sterretania Road.
Thank you.
And this is a problem that we have as well. So what you're proposing, I know from personal experience, doesn't work. It causes greater problems. It causes greater erosion and greater flooding.
The natural stream restoration design, as the pictures I showed you on Cascade Creek, they take into account they're designed for the flood flows. So and they put other rock features and, well, have those eroded away at Cascade Creek?
Well, I don't know about Cascade Creek, but I know that the flows that have been generated by new developments and that are being diverted onto my property has caused massive erosion. And so all of those were supposedly in compliance with what the DEP had required. Okay, so explain to me how developing this kind of a project where you're opening a channel, making more dirt, more gravel, more exposed to rushing water, how does that reduce sedimentation and the sedimentation load?
Well,
My experience is it doesn't.
I understand that, and I definitely hear where you're coming from. So the plan is to make the channel big enough to handle those flows without erosion, in a nutshell. It hasn't been designed yet, so that's the issue. It needs to be designed. So the issue is to stop this continuing erosion of this channel and create a bigger, stable channel.
Ms. Hurt, that's not really determined at this level. This is your proposed projects with projections to DEP.
That the township is going to have to pay to stabilize these banks, okay? And yet, if you spend millions of dollars to do these projects, it's going to create an even greater problem, an even greater flood.
Mr. Waldinger, do you want to address those concerns?
Yeah, I just want to mention that the PRP is a living document. It can be amended. These are the 4 projects that have been identified that can meet our goals for the DEP in the next 5-year cycle. If, as we go along in the design process, any of these don't pan out, we have the ability to amend our application and add or remove projects in order to meet.
But you're constantly adding more and more expense. These are millions of dollars. How is the taxpayer, why should the taxpayer be subjected to increased taxes because of projects that do not work, that create more expense for the taxpayer?
This is a requirement of the DEP coming down from the federal government to the state, and then they put it on the municipalities. We are required to remove this 600,000 pounds of sediment per year over the next 5 years, and we have to identify projects to do that.
So that you dump that into essentially Lake Erie or wherever.
Well, and I can tell you the idea, for example, the Scott Run idea next to the Tom Ridge Environmental Center, the idea there is to create step pools so that the water, does a series of waterfalls. And those pools are intended to gather the sediment where it can be collected and removed rather than continue downstream.
When you have rushing water, it is not going to do that. It is going to scour all of that out.
You're never going to get 100%, but we are required to remove this sediment, and we have to do it through DEP-approved methods. This is something that they approve. Obviously, the application will be subject to their approval. When we submit this, they will come back to us and say whether they agree that these projects are viable or not, and then we will proceed.
So where does the taxpayer stand in basically saying, I'm not going to, as a taxpayer, be subjected to increased taxes because of projects that cause more environmental damage?
Unfortunately, this is an unfunded mandate from the state, and there's no option other than for us to pay fines, which would be well in excess of the cost.
Ms. Hurt, I do apologize for cutting you short, but we do have a 5-minute limit that we've reached. Is anyone else in the audience care to address the PRP? Lynn or Mr. Waldinger, does this require action by the board to authorize submission of the PRP, or is this?
No, this would just be included with our MS4 application. So no, there's no official action of the board required.
Can I don't mean to belabor this, but just for a quick recap, Lynn, this is strictly a plan. We have identified the streams that are under this mandate here that really need some action. This is not a design phase of it by no means. Of course, the comments, this is our public hearing. There are no other public hearings, but the public is able to submit written comments to the township. We will forward them on to the DEP, be entered as part of the record for this matter. And
the comments will be attached to the PRP and responded to, and that will be included in the PRP that is submitted to DEP.
right. So this is nowhere near being a design phase of it. We just identified these 4 as a problem that need to be corrected. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just real quick, I'd like to thank Lynn and her
Yes.
colleagues at Wood for the work that they've done. Originally using the base calculations provided by the DEP, our initial take at the sediment load was over 14 million pounds a year, which would have resulted in a 1.4 million reduction per year for the township. They had the expertise in order to do the calculations and figure out ways that the DEP would accept a new lower amount. So they have helped us greatly in that regard, and I'd like to thank them, as well as Emma George from our staff, who is the project engineer that's been working with them.
Thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Actually, with that, as long as Councilman Fatika is here, I also want to recognize the County Planning Department for assisting us with MS4 overall. County Council last year did authorize a water resource officer for the planning department to assist municipalities through these efforts. I think it's been a great relationship we've had with the county planning department related to MS4 activities, and so we appreciate the county's assistance in that.
Yep, that's for sure.
Next on our agenda is bids and quotations. The first is Millfair Recycling Center Windrow Turner purchase from our Public Services Department.
Okay. Yes, this comes from Jessica Stutzman from the Recycling Department. This is a major equipment purchase that was in the budget. Give me a second to pull this up. Okay. There we go. That's it right here? Okay. She has a quote here from Comptech Top Turn, which is regarding the Millfair Road Recycling Center Windrow Turner. This is a CoStar's account that we can purchase this from. This comes through a grant from DEP 902 grant funding. Let me pull this up here. You have to bear with me. My tablet was not able to download the agenda for today. Let's see here. For a total cost of $390,960. This windrow turner is out there at the recycling center, in which it helps turn over the branches, the mulch that's out there, to make sure that gets aged correctly and we don't have any issues with that. This is part 2 of the grant. Last year, a grant application was awarded for half of the cost. This is the other half, so I put that in the form of a motion to approve that purchase at $390,960 to, what's the company again there? Comptech America. It's a form of a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the windrow turner for $390,960 from Comtech?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I made that motion.
I apologize. Yeah. Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next on our agenda is also from the Millfair Recycling Center equipment purchase from the Public Service Department. And this is related to minor equipment purchases for a workstation and materials and supplies purchase of a welder for the Millfair Compost Center. Correct, Mr. Bill?
Gary, were you going to do that one, or you want me? I don't have it. Oh, you don't have it? Okay.
Well, I can read it off, John.
You want to read it off? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
This request for a workstation, the cost is $2,676 from Office Depot.
Yeah.
Mr. Groh, I understand
Right.
you're more familiar with the...
Right, yeah, this is for a new workstation over in the recycling office. This is Jessica's office. This was a budgeted item. It was budgeted at $4,000, and the actual cost is $2,676 from Office Depot. So I'll put that before, now that I have it pulled up here, Mark pulled it up for me. I'll put that in the form of a motion for that purchase there, to award a workstation for the office there, Office Depot, $2,676.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And also, she has a welder for the compost center. It was budgeted at $2,500, and the actual bid price that we were able to get from Airgas USA was $2,174. So once again, under the budgeted cost. I'll put that in the form of a motion for that purchase.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, I think that's it.
Next item on our agenda is MPS ambulance purchase request from the Fire and EMS Commission.
Jim?
I guess this is the same request we had last meeting. Evidently, this would, according to this document from William Martin, the Executive Director at MPS, February 15th of 2018, MPS requested that the Fire Commission, Finance Committee consider funding or request for funding for a new ambulance, $114,460. And that was an item that was requested through the Fire Commission on their capital budget request form that they submitted. I'm not quite sure what the timetable was there, if it was in February or not. My understanding is that this money would come out of the LST fund. And that's all I have. I'll put that in the form of a motion.
To approve the purchase?
I mean, I didn't even know actually it was going to be on our agenda this week, so
Oh, that's interesting, neither did I.
that was news to me.
I'm a little surprised by it myself.
I think to avoid confusion,
Yeah, the one reason we tabled it last meeting was because we weren't sure if didn't know if they knew it was going to come out of the LST money, the fire department.
that's where I was going.
Right.
But, some confusion of where this is funded from. And so I think it might be appropriate to clear up any confusion or miscommunication that may have occurred, that this go back to the Fire Commission and be very, very specific of where this money is coming from. That would be my suggestion, not to override anything here, but this seems to be a topic of discussion that where the money is coming from. As always, the way we fund our fire departments and ambulance services is through the LST tax, but for some reason there was a miscommunication thinking this was coming out of the general fund.
Their next meeting, I believe, is June 21st.
Right.
I will be attending that meeting.
Might I suggest that we have this clarified through the Fire Commission, just what their recommendation is? Is that out of line to ask that, solicitor?
No, I think it certainly wouldn't be inappropriate to send something back to the commission asking them, do you understand that if this were to be approved, here is where the money would come from, and ensure that that's their intent.
Right. It's a sizable amount to come out of there. I mean, nothing, it's not that it's a bad purchase, it's just where it's coming from, so that they know where the money's coming from for it.
And gentlemen, I would add, I know we get given the commission a directive to create a multi-year joint capital budget that I believe has not yet been developed, and we had, in essence, declared kind of a moratorium on equipment purchases until that joint capital plan was developed. In lieu of that being completed, I do recall Westlake Fire Department making a request of this board and the Fire Commission for a roof repair. Mm-hmm. And I believe in that instance, we did have Mr. Zakrzewski develop a payment plan.
Yeah.
Mark, would you mind refreshing?
Yeah, it was, what it was is we'd amortize the cost of the roof over multiple years, I believe 5 or 10, I forget the exact figure. And we would make a reduction to the LST funds distributed accordingly. It was a small amount because the initial amount was small at $18,000 and spread over multiple years. I think it was about, I don't know, $500 a quarter or something like that. It was small.
It wasn't a lot.
This would be bigger.
Well, gentlemen, I would suggest it might be helpful for the Fire and EMS Commission's discussions if maybe we have Mark create a similar schedule on if this board did approve that purchase, what the impacts might be to the annual allocations to the fire department. Is that
Sure, I can do
quick
that.
numbers to run, Mark, by June 21st?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think at the risk of sounding like I'm repeating myself, but the public, I think, should know that any funding that we give to the fire departments comes from the LST, the local services tax. That is the $1 a week that is collected from your income. That's how it is funded. It is not funded through the general fund of the Millcreek Township taxpayers. So just have that for the record there. In case nobody knew that, now you do. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would suggest, I guess, a motion to send back to the Fire Commission a clarification that they understand what the source of the money would be should the supervisors approve this purchase, together with the information that Mark would put together.
Is there a motion to provide a formal response to the Fire and EMS Commission, clarifying the funding source along with the amortization schedule from Mr. Krzyzewski?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Yep, I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the vehicle purchase for the Public Works Department. Mr. Snyder.
This request comes from the Buildings and Grounds Department. They request the purchase of a 2019 Ford F-250 4x4. This is a budgeted item. It would be a CoStar's purchase, contract number 025-245, and the cost would be $40,220, and that would be from TriStar Motors in Blairsville, PA.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Nope, for me.
Is there a motion to approve the purchase for $40,220 from TriStar Motors?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is equipment purchases from the Public Works Department. Mr. Snyder.
I have three. This would be for the Fleet Maintenance Department. The first is for jack stands. These jack stands are long, they're not short ones, so that if the vehicle's up in the air, they can be set back down on these jack stands and still be elevated. This is a CoStar's purchase from Gray Company. CoStar's contract is 025-254, and the cost is $4,484, and this is a budgeted item.
Okay.
Any questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the purchase?
Yes, I will move on that purchase.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
The next one I have is for a hydraulic stacker. This is basically a mini forklift. We received 3 quotes. The first one from Nationwide Industrial Supply for $3,961.80. The second one from Crane Depot for $2,999. And third from Northern Tool and Equipment for $3,299.99. It would be my recommendation to go with Northern Tool and Equipment. Crane Depot is cheaper, but it does not meet the requirements that we need.
Okay.
It's too wide to go through a hand door. So that would be my recommendation. This is also a budgeted item.
Okay.
So motion to approve the purchase of the hydraulic stacker from Northern Tool and Equipment for $3,299.99.
Yes, I'll move on that purchase.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And the last one I have is an emissions testing machine. There is only one as of this time that is state approved, and that is from the Opus Inspection Company for the cost of $4,950, and it would be my recommendation that we purchase that from the Opus Inspection Company.
Okay.
This is also a budgeted item.
Is there a motion to approve the emissions testing machine from Opus Inspection Company for a cost of $4,950?
Yes, I'll move on that purchase.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Next item is a mower purchase from the Parks and Recreation Department.
Just give us a second while we pull it up. Okay, once we get the numbers here, this is a budgeted item, mower for the Parks Department. It was, as I said, was budgeted, knew that the one that we had was going to die. Well, guess what? It just died here in the last few days. So it's listed as an emergency mower purchase, but thankfully we had the foresight to know that it was going to be dying here this year. This is requesting approval for an Exmark 96-inch rear discharge zero-turn mower purchased through Miller's Brothers. A state contract, this is CoStar's, state contract, and this purchase will be funded with the capital funds as previously approved in that budget. Can I have the price on that there? Let's see here.
Yep. Just a second.
Yeah.
It's $31,079.30.
Okay, yeah, there we go. $31,079 for that mower through Miller Brothers, and there's a CoStar's price on that. I put that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Grove?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Next item is cable box provider requests from the Emergency Management and Code Enforcement Department. Mr. Exley.
Gentlemen, in our upgrade of the Emergency Operations Center, and in cooperation with the Police Department, Streets Department, Sewer Departments, we identified the need for cable service to those units for planning purposes, as well as being able to keep an eye on what's going on outside of during severe weather events. We're asking to go with Velocity Network. They are providing the service for free. The only cost to us is $5 per unit that we'll be providing cable to. We were able to go back through and reduce the number of units that were currently on the township property to 9 units. That will cover the Emergency Operations Center, the Police Department, the Streets Department, and the Sewer Department. One of those sets is, or one of those cable boxes is being provided at no cost. The additional ones are $5 each. So it would be a total of $40 per month for those services from Velocity Net.
I just want to clarify, I'm looking at the quote from VNet still has $65.
That's correct. That was the original quote that we got. I received a new quote just moments prior to this meeting, which reflects the current.
Any questions or comments from the board?
So Matt, we didn't need 13 then as originally planned, is that?
Originally, that original quote was the exact number of TVs that were in the entire township complex.
Okay.
When I coordinated with the Police Department, Sewer Department, Streets Department, we identified that we could reduce that number, therefore saving costs to the units that were truly needed for basically the emergency services portion of it. So that's how we were able to come up with the 9 sets.
Okay. We can always add if we happen to need some later.
Correct. It would just be an additional $5 per set per month.
Okay, thank you.
And I should mention that I did clarify with them that there were no additional costs. What they're going to do is our current cable system that runs throughout the building comes into the building at the same location that our fiber lines come in. So they'll simply connect those two together, and we will use the existing wiring inside the building. So we won't even have to have building maintenance rewire anything, as long as everything's still working right, which it was several months ago when we lost the service.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Just quickly, and Mark, stop me if I'm going too far, okay?
Well, maybe if I could just
Maybe
real
you
quickly
could,
set the
why
context for
we're
this
doing this.
and why this is necessary. When Spectrum upgraded to digital service, it impacted the township, as I suspect it did many of our residents, triggering the need to have a box on TVs that otherwise were able to get the cable signal without a box. It is the township's view that under its current agreement with Spectrum or Time Warner, that those boxes should come to the township at no cost. Spectrum disagrees and is refusing to provide the boxes, and are seeking to bill us for those boxes, I believe at a cost that would be higher than what VNet would charge. And I just spoke with, after an exchange of a couple of letters, I spoke with Spectrum's counsel on Friday, who indicated unqualifiedly that they were not going to budge on their position, and we should be receiving a letter here shortly with respect to that. So that I guess I would suggest that, subject to the receipt of that letter and them not having changed their mind between my phone call and our receipt of the letter, which is supposed to be this week, that I would recommend the township proceed with the VNet so that we can ensure that we have the proper services that are necessary for emergency situations, and we can deal with the spectrum issue separately then.
It's not been easy.
Any further questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve contracting services with Velocity Network for a total not to exceed $45 a month to provide cable service to 9 stations in the township building?
Yes, I'll move on that agreement.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Grove?
I vote yes.
Mr. Buck?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next on our agenda is public hearing, petition requesting a change in zoning classification. The first is by William Keitlinger and Gail Elmer for property located at 3303 West 26th Street, now zoned R1 Single Family Residential, asking for a change in classification to C1 Local Commercial. Mr. Puz.
Yes. Good morning. At the regular meeting on May 1st, 2018, and in concurrence with the recommendation of the Erie County Department of Planning, Millcreek Township Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the proposed rezoning at 3303 West 26th Street from R1 to C1.
Were there any concerns at that planning commission hearing that
No.
were brought up? Okay.
No concerns.
Is anyone in attendance here to speak on behalf of the rezoning request? Good morning. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Hi, my name is Gail Elmer, and I live at 6326 Stonebrook Drive, Fairview. And I am one of the owners of the property that we would like to have you rezone for us. We just felt it would be much more marketable if it were zoned commercial. It's not really a great place for residents anymore.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
You're planning on marketing the property then after
Yes.
whatever action would happen here today?
Yes.
Okay, you're not going to do anything with the building then? You're not going to do anything with the building as it is right
Would
now?
I tear it down or something?
Yeah.
No.
You don't know anything? Okay, okay. Just curious.
All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience care to address this rezoning request? Any further comments from you, Mr. Puz?
It'd be my recommendation to recommend approval.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the rezoning of 3303 West 26th Street from R1 Single Family Residential to C1 Local Commercial?
Yes, I will move on that request.
To approve?
To approve, yes, I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
Vote yes.
Mr. Buck?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is NLA Real Estate Holding LLC for property located at 4341 West Ridge Road, an empty lot east of 4341 West Ridge Road, now zoned R1 Single Family Residential, C2 General Commercial, and C3 Highway Commercial, asking for a change in classification to R4 High Density Residential. Mr. Puz.
Morning. The regular meeting on May 1st, 2018, and in concurrence with the recommendation of the Erie County Department of Planning, the Millcreek Township Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the proposed rezoning at 4341 West Ridge Road and the vacant lot to the east from, to rezone it from the R1, C2, and C3 zoning districts to R4, high-density residential.
Any concerns expressed in the Planning Commission meeting?
Not by the Planning Commission, no.
Is someone here to speak on behalf of NLA Real Estate Holding LLC?
Good morning. My name is Guy Giuliano. This is my son, Nick Giuliano, and we're requesting that change it's the Bennett Car Wash on 26th Street, and then there's a vacant piece of land to the east of that to an R4. And at the May Planning Commission meeting, we had taken a look at the Millcreek Comprehensive Plan, and in there yet a future land use plan. And the future land use zoning legend indicated that proposed rezoning area was to be changed to multi-unit or R4. So we decided to put a contract on that and send that through there. We'd like to build some townhomes. We've built townhomes in Millcreek, one at 2412 Powell Avenue. They're the blue ones as soon as you turn north on Powell Avenue here on the left-hand side or west side there. They're upscale places. And we've built 4 complexes around the Coqua Club area in Fairview. Once again, all upscale places. And we still believe, even though this was yesterday's news with the 2002 comprehensive plan, it should be, it should complement the new plan that you folks have been working on as well.
Any questions or comments from the board? No. Would anyone else in the audience care to address the rezoning of this property? And again, please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Hello, my name is still Chuck Felix, and I still live at 28th and McKee Road. And this property is within the watershed of our neighborhood. 30 years ago, my house flooded for the first time. At that time, Villa de Casa was not fully developed. I came to a township meeting when I saw water coming up out of the catch basins instead of going down into the catch basins, and told the township, you're building too much for the amount of infrastructure we have. I was basically told I didn't know what I was talking about. Millcreek Township had professionals that were in charge of storm sewer management, and basically told to take a hike. Well, back then, our neighborhood used to flood about once every 3 or 4 years. But they continued building. And then maybe every other year we got flooded. And then every year we got flooded. And now we're flooding 3 or 4 times a year because of all the building that's gone on, especially that medical center. You'll have engineers tell you, oh no, we have a retention pond in there that captures everything up to a 100-year flood. Well, a year ago, almost today, Father's Day flood, the water was 1.5 feet over that retention pond. It was retaining 0 because it was completely full. And all that roof space, all that parking lot was 100% runoff and contributed to the flood. And I'm sure someone's going to want to build now. They're not rezoning it for the fun of it. And they're going to come up with a plan that says, don't worry, it won't flood except this 100-year flood. But we've had 4 100-year floods last year and 2 so far this year. And you want to build more? I understand this is not a building permit. This is just a rezoning permit. But the only thing that this will do will open the door for them to submit a plan to build. And the gentleman just said they're planning on building apartment complexes. You have to have so much parking with apartment complexes. You have to submit a storm sewer plan, which isn't worth the paper it's written on. Because our neighborhood's getting flooded more and more because you're building absolutely no more building, no more zoning changes until we fix this infrastructure problem.
Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Fatigue. I live at 4327 West 28th Street. I totally agree with Mr. Felix. We've been dealing with this problem for 20 plus years, at least that I've been there. The majority of my neighbors have been there 25 plus years. They've been dealing with it longer than I have. We keep asking for your help. We don't seem to see any movement on anything. And you're looking to possibly build more apartments. I'd like to know where the water runoff is going to go, besides Tom Delfrat's backyard and the cul-de-sac. So you need to seriously consider what you're doing here. You've got a lot of people that lived there a long time. Our property values aren't what they should be because of this, and it needs to be fixed, guys. Thank you.
I apologize if you state your name and address for the record for
Mary
this
Kay
part here.
Calavota, 4403 West 28th Street. I happened to go to the planning meeting, and I like the idea of what Mr. Giuliano is proposing in terms of the construction. I've seen what he did down on Powell Avenue. However, I have two concerns. A group of neighbors are very concerned about the development abutting Country Lane. And I don't remember, you don't know if you remember, Mr. Shaw, I asked the question at that time, is there a way to restrict any change in zoning so that there would be no ingress or egress off of Country Lane?
Mr. Wall, there might be a better thing for you. That's
Now,
part
let
of
me just give you some background. This is not the first time that you have been as a body, not you, because none of you were here, but requested to change this to R4 for commercial purposes, for multi-use purposes. And every time it was turned down by the supervisors, obviously, because it has not yet been done. And the reasons why it was turned down was because it involved ingress and egress on Country Lane. Country Lane runs perpendicular to West 28th Street, and it is a private road. So will your, whatever you determine here, would you restrict this to no ingress and egress on Country Lane?
Mr. Waldinger, if it's a private road, do we have grounds to restrict access to a private road?
Well, access to a property, a new development is regulated at the land development stage when they would submit a plan. But we would not allow a residential or an R4 project access to Country Lane, as it is a private drive, and that would increase the traffic. We would require that they have access on the major thoroughfare, which in this case is West Ridge Road. So at the time of the land development, they would have to submit their access plan. It would be reviewed by both the Planning Commission, then approved by the supervisors, as well as our office, and we would ensure that there was no access to Country Lane, just because it was not ever designed to hold that volume of traffic, and it is private.
Okay, that's the first question. The second question is, of course, the issue of flooding. I don't live in the Villa de Casa side. I live on the other side off of Patio Drive. When we get one of these major floods, water runs down all of the north-south streets in Villa de Casa. It also runs down Patio Drive and goes past my house into the field next to Tom Delfrat's house, which is owned by the Jackson family, okay? It is literally feet deep. It has gotten worse over the years. Many of the neighbors, I think, believe that it's gotten worse due to the construction by St. Vincent, which is taking place over there. Is there some kind of a plan to change that 42-inch pipe under the street down by Joe's Gym? And really, I think Mr. Giuliano should be concerned also, especially if you have basements in your units. He may be subject to the same problem as some of the other neighbors on the other side are subject to. Is there some kind of a plan to do anything about that?
Well, I'll address that. That's not really, that's outside the scope of the rezoning.
I understand that, but it all is involved in the same neighborhood.
I will say, and I know PennDOT was involved in studying that stormwater issue, and while I understand that it seems counter to what would seem like common sense, PennDOT did analyze that, and the flooding problem in the area, removing the 42-inch pipe would provide little to no benefit to the flooding area. And that's from PennDOT's estimations, that the challenge with that stormwater system, from their analysis, is more so, as you stated earlier, kind of the constriction further upstream. So removing the pipe, I know we've had discussions, but it really, from the projections, and Mr. Waldinger, correct me if I'm wrong, from the projections that the state did as part of Senator Laughlin's engagement in getting the state to do an analysis, that pipe, for PennDOT's projections, is not actually part of the problem. The problem, as we stated earlier, was kind of an undersized pipe for containment purposes and flow purposes that are related to that pipe behind the homes, and also some of the pipes that run from the street into that pipe. So while as part of an overarching plan for stream restoration, possibly that pipe could be removed, but just to clarify, and again, I know several people in the audience will vehemently disagree, but I can tell you we've had professional engineers look at this issue, and removing that pipe is likely to not provide any benefit. Is that in isolation of other improvements, at least? Is that an accurate statement, Mr. Waldinger?
Yeah, from what we've seen so far and what is done with their study, that is correct.
Mr. Waldinger, the concerns about water flows, this particular development, it is downstream from the flooding problem, is it not? Or is there potential this would actually?
Without having a topo map in front of me, I can't tell for sure. I believe, in general, all of the land in that area falls from the south to the north. So this water would continue towards the north out to West Ridge Road. But I can't be for sure if it heads more to the west or more to the east without a contour map. And that would again be addressed in the land development stage where they would have to do a full survey and full stormwater management plan to contain their water.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just to let you know what actually has happened, I've lived in this property 30-some years, and the flooding does not affect me, but it affects the field right next to me. We did not have any, well, I don't want to say that, probably twice in the 30 years up until the last year or so, we had a couple of floodings of the field. That's it, a couple flooding, my whole time there. In the last year, we've had 2. That runs immediately west of your property. I think that would be a concern.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to point out, give me an eye on that, but I do, it clearly shows the project in question is in that watershed, if anybody wants to look at it, if that helps your decision at all. This is
Thank you, Mr.
from the
Phillips.
township engineer.
Perhaps Mr. Giuliano could briefly just address, I know we're not here specifically for this, but am I correct in saying that if you're going to invest in this property, you want to have some degree of certainty that there's not going to be water issues for you?
Oh, I've got to fix this. I look at these neighbors, and I used to live on Timber Ridge. Cunningham built this thing, and I had the house that lived right here in the middle. And I would sail my clothes out the front door every time it would rain. It wouldn't be a 100-year flood. So I know when I look in the whites of their eyes what somebody feels when their basement floods. It's like an invasion of your home. What I have here, I think, is between Joe's Gym and the Stutzman's property and this pipe issue is, and the DEP says, hey, it's not this, and somebody says it's not this, and these poor neighbors are stuck here in the middle of it. Yesterday, I put under contract the back half of the Stutzman's property. It's a 0.9 acre. I plan to develop that for nothing but stormwater retention. These folks will never let me put one drop, even though we did perk tests already for these 2 parcels here, and they perked wonderfully. I don't expect any of that water to go anywhere near there. It's the best dirt that we've seen. It's better than the one on Powell Avenue, which was phenomenal. However, we're going to try and work with Millcreek's engineer and our engineer to see if we can't improve this or help this. I'll have equipment there. I'll donate the time for that. If Millcreek wants to help work with my engineers to do that, I just want these folks to feel comfortable that somebody's trying to do something with it, and we're not afraid to step up to the plate. But I'll do whatever I can. Like I said, it costs me already an additional 0.9 acres to fix this. That's coming in front of the Planning Commission on July 3rd. So you'll see that, and that'll be added to this. I just gave the application to Matt yesterday for the deadline. But I suppose if you approve this as a rezoning today, you can blow it right out of the water if we can't make something sound halfway decent. And I'm just going to spend lots of money with engineers and design things for this because the young lady is right. I don't want my basements to flood either. Okay, so I got to fix this. I got to somehow figure it out. So it may not be my problem. It is my problem now. So I just want to work with everybody, but I don't think that if you blow this out of the water right now, it's over with. They still have the problem, and it is what it is. And I don't know that there's any other plan. So maybe I'm the long shot right now, but I would appreciate you rezoning this, giving me the opportunity. If you want to blow it out of the water at the land development and the stormwater retention, then you have that opportunity. We will not access Country Lane whatsoever. That is a private parcel. We have an HOP occupancy permit already approved from PennDOT for the 26th Street. You know, we're going to do this correctly. We're going to talk to the neighbors, how they want their privacy and stuff like that. This is not going to be slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I have a couple. Let me start with Matt Waldinger. To your knowledge, and I'm not sure if we have any records there in the engineering office, is there stormwater management on that property right now? The development that's there, is there anything?
The car wash, I do not believe any. That was built in the era before the township required stormwater management. If there is any sort of detention or retention on that property, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Okay, for Matt Puz, this is a rezoning matter only.
Correct.
Am I correct? Okay. Let me go back to Matt Waldinger. When they get to the point, if they get to the point, and there's a big if, that two-letter word is big now. Should there be a need to go with underground storage for the stormwater management? That is one option that we do allow. Should that be the case, underground storage, which is actually used a lot because we have to make sure that none of that stormwater ends up on other properties. That's under our stormwater management law, right?
It is permitted, yes.
It is, yes. That's what something has to be done to keep that from happening. So, Mr. Shaw, are we able to enact a moratorium township-wide on building until we can get our stormwater problems taken care of? Is that a legal matter we can do? Can we do that? Or even on this property, can we say, you can't build on it until we fix our stormwater issues?
Yeah, I
just throwing it out there for conversation. I'm sorry.
I presume you could arguably do that if you chose to. I mean, there may be other ways or better ways of tackling that than instituting that type of
That's a drastic
measure.
action.
Yeah,
That's
it would be a drastic measure.
And possibly subject to litigation, too.
Yeah, I would think that
challenges everywhere.
particularly people would be opposed to that type of thing and challenge it as it may apply to their particular property, and may have other alternatives that they would view as meeting the same standards. I would add from a zoning perspective, I mean, the two issues that were raised with respect to, the private drive and the stormwater, what the future plan would be. With respect to the private drive, I think it's pretty clear that, that's a matter between that property owner and those who control that private drive. The township really can't direct one way or another. We can't allow someone to use a private drive. We don't have jurisdiction over that from that perspective. With respect to the stormwater, again, someone could develop this property today under the current zoning and develop it in any fashion they wish, as long as they met the standards for stormwater. So the zoning use really doesn't impact the stormwater, and this wouldn't be necessarily the right place or time for that consideration. That's really in the land development, portion of the overall development of the property. That's when you address those types of issues and those types of specifics. So I guess what I would just say is, from a zoning perspective, really the only issue before the board is, should this use change, the types of specifics that are raised with respect to the objections, I think frankly are more properly placed when the actual development proceeds or goes to happen.
I guess along those lines, Mr. Paz, Mr. Waldinger, we haven't heard concerns about the use. But looking at it, I'm curious what your perspectives are. This is a rather large area to be rezoned, multifamily. A large part of it currently is zoned single family. Do you gentlemen have any concerns about?
At this time, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the land use plan. I don't see any issue with it.
And I will say that as far as what we've been looking at in Embrace Millcreek and, moving forward from the current comprehensive plan, one of the big ideas is to potentially increase multifamily along major corridors such as Route 20, that we do have too much commercial spread out, and that multifamily would be a good use for those areas. We do see a need for additional multifamily units, so much so that people are renting out single-family homes now because there's just a dearth of units for rent, and this was one of the areas that we identified. Not this specific project or site, but the area of increasing multifamily along major corridors.
Any additional questions or comments from the board? None from me. Anyone else in the crowd like to address the board regarding this rezoning? With that, is there a motion to approve the rezoning request of NLA Real Estate Holdings LLC at the property of 4341 West Ridge Road and empty lot east of 4341 West Ridge Road?
I will move to approve the rezoning of those properties.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. The next item is Raz Development 1 LLC for property located at 2055, 2103, 2155, and 2209 Edinburgh Road, now zoned RR Rural Residential, asking for a change in classification to R4 High Density Residential. Mr. Buzz.
Morning. At the regular meeting on May 1st, 2018, and in concurrence with the recommendation of the Erie County Department of Planning, Millcreek Township Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the proposed rezoning at 2055, 2103, 2155, and 2109 Edinburgh Road from RR Rural Residential to R4 High Density Residential.
Does anyone here represent Raz Development 1 LLC?
Good morning. I'm Rob Savarino, president of RAS Development Company, and I am the applicant for requesting of the rezoning that we're here to talk about today. I chose this site basically for a couple of reasons. One was the access to services and retail for prospective tenants in such a development. And I consulted with the engineers, surveyors, and looked at the comprehensive plan of 2002. And in that comprehensive plan, it had a land use plan that described that specific area, and that parcel is D zoning, which at that point in time was high density. And it got updated to an R4 recommendation, which is high density residential. One of the key parts in analyzing a site for potential purchase is to try to ward off any type of controversy that could occur. So I decided that any development on that site would not be accessed through Crestwood, which is a drive towards the rear of the site. I worked with the seller of the site to try to line the access, the ingress and egress across from Rinderley Drive on Edinburgh Road. I think that was the most appropriate way to access the site. I have not looked at this site to design it yet. My goal is to seek a rezoning and then work within the zoning, what I could allow to design there, and work with some engineers to design based on feasibility to design the product. I also want to note that the location, it's an arterial roadway, so I'm not proposing multifamily on side streets or neighborhood streets, which could be obviously a concern. With that being said, I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a question for Matt Puz. County Planning reviewed this too? Did they?
Yes.
And okay, I didn't hear, I'm sorry if I wasn't paying attention. They recommended approval too?
Yes, yes. Their only comment, and I had the same comment, was that according to the current land use plan, the southeast corner is designated for public use.
Okay.
Just to amend the land use plan to reflect the multifamily use there instead of having that as public use.
Okay. Once again, this is a rezoning application. I don't want to repeat myself that, of course, the gamble is on your part, Mr. Apparino, that, you know, should you be successful today with this and decide to go with the development plan, you know, the costs that may go with that, therefore, everything you need to do.
Absolutely.
It's complicated, as you probably are aware, so.
I am aware, yes.
It is complicated building anymore.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Waldinger or Mr. Snyder, you have the most experience in the room. Do you either recall why that corner would have been designated for public use?
No, I don't. It's adjacent to Summit Township. I really am not sure why it was shown as such, but it was.
Okay. And I do have a question for you, Jim. I know another rezoning came up along Route 99 in the past year, and I believe the Planning Commission arranged to table that decision. What's the difference between this request from the Planning Commission's perspective and that request?
Yeah, they asked to table that request because it was a commercial development that was not consistent with the future land use plan. There is also a study that was being performed by PennDOT and the township and Summit Township on Route 99 and access. They had concerns about further commercial development expanding beyond the current limits. So they asked the developer to table that until both the comprehensive plan and the Route 99 study were complete.
Okay.
I might add, this property does border an R4 use right now through a variance. I think that's Spring Hill.
Yeah.
Would anyone else in attendance care to address this rezoning? Any further questions from the board?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve the rezoning of parcels located at 2055, 2103, 2155, 2209 Edinburgh Road, now zoned RR Rural Residential to R4 High Density Residential?
Yes, I'll move to permit the rezoning as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rowe?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 2018-R23, a resolution pursuant to Resolution 2015-R20 and the Municipal Records Manual to approve proposed disposition of certain township records. This meeting, that would be to authorize the deletion of MPD webcam videos that reach the required retention period between the dates of June 13, 2018 and June 26, 2018. Are we also authorizing disposition of CDBG records, Mark?
Yes.
I believe.
Yes, I believe so.
Right.
And
Just for clarification, the Erie County Planning Department does administrate our CDBG program, Community Development Block Grant Program on behalf of the township. We received requests from the county to free up some of their storage space to dispose of certain records that have reached their expiration dates per federal and state requirements. Those related to the 5-year consolidated plan, basically all documentation related to the 5-year consolidated plan and CAPER reports for CDBG and annual action plans dating from 1998 through 2014. Any questions or comments from the board?
No.
No.
I'm good on that there.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2018-R23 to dispose of those records?
Yes, I will move on that action.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is a streetlight installation request. Mr. Zakrzewski, if you're familiar with...
This was a petition to install streetlights on Oakland Avenue. Mr. Shaw, or Attorney Shaw, reviewed the petition to make sure that it met all the requirements, and it did. They got the signatures of 70% of the residents on the street. This is how we add streetlights in a where they don't currently exist. Is you get the neighbors to approve a request, and this is, although not as routine as it may have been in the past, it's still nonetheless a routine request.
Any additional comments, Mr. Shaw?
No, the only basic requirement is the 70% requirement, which was met. The engineering department identified the properties that had to be notified and participate, and 70% of those, more than 70% of those, agreed with the installation, which I think is a single light, I believe so.
A single light.
Yes, I believe so.
Only a block.
It's a short block.
Any further questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the requested installation of one 100-watt high-pressure sodium vapor light on the existing wood pole at 4810 Oakland Street per the submitted plans and petition?
Yes, I'll move on that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I'll vote yes.
And I vote yes. And the next item is the appointment to the MPO Coordinating and Technical Advisory Committees. Mr. Walden?
Yes, at the annual reorganizational meeting held January 2nd, the township made appointments to various committees and organizations. One of those two of those appointments were to two different committees on the Metropolitan Planning Organization. At the time, Rick Morris, the township engineer, was appointed to positions on the Technical Advisory Committee as well as the Coordinating Committee. Mr. Morris has since retired, and so the township should update its appointments to both of those committees.
And your recommendation is to?
Since I was designated as Mr. Morris's alternate on the Coordinating Committee, the recommendation would be that I be the designated person on that committee, and that Emma George, engineer from our office, be my alternate. And then as far as the Technical Advisory Committee, it's also recommended that I take Mr. Morris's seat on the Technical Advisory Committee, and that Supervisor Morgan remain as the alternate on that.
Any questions from the board?
No. Sound like a good move. Yeah.
Well, then I'll move that we appoint Mr. Waldinger as our voting representative for the MPO Coordinating Committee, as our voting representative for the Technical Advisory Committee, and Emma George as Mr. Waldinger's alternate to the Coordinating Committee.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you, Matt.
You need a motion to put you as the alternate, right?
No, I'm
okay, I'm sorry. I thought we had to do that there separately. Okay. I was going to nominate you, John.
God bless you, John. Next, our memorandum of understandings for multi-municipal collaboration grant fundings. The first is the Emergency Traffic Signal Preemption System. This would be a MOU with Summit Township.
Yes, this is a through the Erie Area COG, Erie Area Council of Governments, joint effort between, let's see, I get the right one, between Millcreek Township and Summit Township to provide, I think it's finishing out for Summit Township. Also, with ours, we have 5 intersections. that need upgrades in regards to the preemption system. This is the also known generically as the radar system. This is a grant opportunity, 50-50 match for the COG through the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority. This is an MOU of what the Millcreek Township will provide and what Summit Township will do together. I believe they have 9 intersections that they're doing this at. Am I correct? Don't mean to put you on the spot, Mrs. Fatika. Do you recall? Were there 10 of them? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. One of them being right outside the casino itself, which is the source of the revenue authority. You know, what's how they get their funding. So anyway, I'll put that in the form of a motion to approve that MOU.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
For me.
I'd like to bring up a couple points. I just now received the MOU for review yesterday. Gentlemen, I do have some concerns in that the MOU doesn't clarify what the township's funding commitment is for the project. It doesn't clarify where the installations will occur for the township as part of this project. It also designates township municipal employees to do work in Summit Township with no discussion of the cost estimates or time requirements for that. And further stipulates that while we will be providing assistance in Summit Township's language very clearly states that all of their work and labor will be only for Summit Township. Further, I'm concerned this has already been executed, and my understanding is submitted to ECRA without action by the board. And so I'm a little concerned that any member of this board would sign a document committing township funding or township staff resources to a intermunicipal agreement without action by the board. And I'm also seeing now that the chairman of the Summit Township Board of Supervisors also did not sign this document. So I'm curious if the Summit Board actually authorized it. But that's just my commentary on the MOU.
Okay. Okay.
With that, I guess we can take a vote if you like.
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I'll vote no. Okay. Next item is tree plantings, City of Erie and the Erie Area Council of Governments.
Okay. This is for tree planting through the Erie Area Council of Governments through a grant with Pennsylvania Sea Grant to provide funding for tree plantings. I believe there was 96 trees, something like that, throughout Millcreek and Erie, and I believe there's one other municipality, but this goes through no, it's just Erie and the City of Erie and Millcreek Township. Have a dedicated interest in collaborating on this project. Millcreek and the city have budgeted or expected to be budgeted in fiscal year 2018 and or 19 for tree planting and the removal of dead or dangerous trees. So the city of Erie has budgeted over $50,000 and Millcreek has budgeted $35,000 and expects to budget another $35,000 for next year for tree removal and plantings. So I'll put that in form of a motion, that MOU between Erie and Millcreek, and then also the COG.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
All right, I've got a few comments on this one as well. Again, the MOU was provided to the board as a whole just yesterday afternoon. I'll note that the project is not specific for the city or Millcreek Township. I'm concerned that it's listing that Millcreek Township will commit matching funds up to $70,000, but the project is not limited to Millcreek or the City of Erie. It's also not even limited to COG members, as it specifically notes that PAC grants will be soliciting non-member municipalities to have shade trees installed. So the way this reads, it sounds like township revenue is being used to match for a grant and perhaps fund projects outside the township. And I'll note that this document was signed by a member of the board without board action. And further, one of the participating municipalities, City of Erie, is neither signed by the mayor, nor the president of city council, nor the director of public works. So there's concerns I have regarding this, and that this was already submitted. And again, it's concerning to me that members of this board would take action or sign documents committing township staff and township funds, any other township resources to other organizations without authorization by the board by formal action. With that, I will call for a vote.
The vote yes?
Mr. Bach.
I vote yes.
And I vote no. Next item on the agenda is request for sale from County Repository, 1418 Wanna Drive trailer. Mr. Zakrzewski, I believe you typically
This
raise the board
is
on these?
one of those typical requests from the county. They're asking us to exonerate our portion of the real estate taxes on this property, which amount over the years to $146.95. I believe that was over 5 or 6 or 7 years. It's better to get it, exonerate the little bit of money there and get it back on the tax rolls. They've got generally these have a purchaser, and so therefore we'll get it back on the tax rolls and hopefully get a little bit of tax money for it again. It's about $19 a year.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Quick comment, maybe a question about it. We've had a few of these come through here. It's like every month, maybe every other month, we'll have one of these. I have concerns regarding people buying these things and refurbishing. I think that's what the intent is.
Yeah, I believe so.
And I'm not really sure that that's productive to efforts in regards to what the land bank is doing and any other organization in reducing blight. So I'm going to take a guess, without seeing this thing, that this trailer is in pretty poor condition.
It'll be here in a second.
Okay, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, circa 1960. I think it's something maybe we ought to look at. I know we need this action to take care of right now, but maybe find out more if this is the best method do we have to get rid of marginal or blighted trailers or anything, although I don't know the interior condition of it. I think, Mr. Exley, not to put you on the spot, but as a fire code official, you've probably been in some of these places to check them out. Rehabbing these things, advised, not advised?
We have dealt with manufactured housing on many fronts in regards to blighting conditions across the township. And one of the things that is challenging with that is, as you know, with a single-family residential or multifamily residential, things that were built under the Pennsylvania Building Code, those are built to a certain standard and they're required to be returned to that standard. The problem with manufactured housing is that the homes are built to a less than Pennsylvania building standard. In the first place, they're built to HUD standards, federal standards, and so there is no current way to bring a manufactured home back to a refurbished, usable condition other than having the original manufacturer stamp and sign off on that, which honestly never happens.
No.
So most of these, if they are in a blighted condition and our office becomes involved, they will receive an order to demolish.
Right. I'm okay with us doing this today. I'm not going to make an issue out of it, but I think that maybe before the next one of these comes to us, maybe some further review of what we should be doing or how the county is feeling about this, because we're not the only taxing body or the school district. I know we just want to exonerate, get these things out of there, but are we really doing ourselves any favors? That's the question, So anyway, with that said, I'll just leave it alone from there.
Mark, what is the total for the taxes we'll be exonerating for this thing?
For us, it's $146.95.
$146?
Yes. Like I said, it's about $17, $18, $19 a year, depending on millage and assessed value.
Any other questions from the board? This is an exoneration request then, Mark? that
Yes.
We're voting on? Is there a motion to approve the exoneration of municipal taxes on 1418 Wanna Drive?
As weird as it sounds, I will vote to, or move to approve that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Grove?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bond?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And I guess, you know, John, I agree with you. We do need to have an overall blight strategy. We've been working with Mr. Exley, Mr. Waldner through the
Right.
comp plan.
Exactly.
But I do believe even if it were a county land bank were to somehow get involved, that they would probably exonerate, request exoneration
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
It's part of their process, I understand.
But to Mr. Exley's point, to which, you know, not to belabor it, the fact is that these things are very hard, very hard to rebuild and bring them in code compliance. So something to think about. Okay.
Next item on the agenda. This is a really short agenda today, guys.
Yeah. Should we have a break in the action?
Pharmacy benefit non-disclosure agreement. Is that Mr. Zakrzewski or Mr. Shaw like to?
I can probably attest to the origination of this, and then Mark can chime in after that.
I can then blame him for the origination.
Well, this should be interesting. All right.
Our pharmacy, our consultants that help us with our health insurance are looking to improve our pharmacy benefit from the standpoint of the money that we pay, because we're self-funded. Whatever the charges are, we have to pay the outfit that processes the prescriptions as you go to the pharmacy to have them filled. So with this, our consultant actually became part of a larger group that now has some resources available to them. And obviously, when you're bigger, you've got more clout with the various pharmacy benefit providers. And this non-disclosure agreement came about as a result of our consultant wanting to be able to put this to use. But then there's some issues about confidentiality, which I'll let Mark get into, because as you know, being a government, we are required to basically have everything on right to know and open records and sunshine and transparency. So sometimes these things end up being a bit of a gray area.
So we ended up negotiating with this party and trying to get language that would, address, what we're obligated to do as a municipality, as well as address the concerns that they have with respect to confidential information that they may possess and provide as part of this evaluation process. So I think we've come to agreement with some language that I think satisfies their concerns and satisfies our concerns, as well as ensuring that HIPAA doesn't inadvertently get violated in the whole mix of things as well. So what was a fairly simple agreement got somewhat complicated, trying to ensure that the various levels of confidentiality are protected. So from my perspective, I would recommend that the board approve it from in terms of the legal perspective.
And this agreement with RX Benefits Incorporated and HDH Group Incorporated? I just don't see a summary.
Yeah, it's between RX Benefits, HDH, and the township.
Any questions or comments from the board?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the pharmacy benefit non-disclosure agreement with RX Benefits Incorporated and HDH Group as presented?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Grove?
Vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the Next Generation Public Safety Radio System Addendum to Interagency Agreement dated December 1st, 2015.
This is an agreement that resulted from the supervisors previously approving the purchase of certain equipment associated with the Next Generation Public Safety Radio System. If you recall, at that time, it was made subject to ultimately entering into an agreement with the county. Before you now is that draft agreement. If the supervisors would approve, it would then be submitted through the county process for their approval. Their internal folks in council have reviewed this and are recommending it. Essentially, it covers the purchase of the consoles and the connection equipment that was approved by the supervisors a couple of months ago. It sets forth a payment schedule The console's purchase price is $45,194.50, payable over 10 years beginning in 2019. The maintenance for those consoles is $11,812.05 per year for 20 years beginning in 2020. The fiber optic connection equipment purchase is $12,934.43, payable over 10 years beginning in 2019. And the maintenance for that fiber optic connection equipment is $3,816.67 per year for 20 years beginning in 2019. All of those prices are consistent with what was approved by the board previously. In addition, if the township ultimately has the county handle all of the emergency dispatching, the township's payment obligations under this agreement would cease, so that the township would be able to stop making these payments, because now the county would take that equipment back, and I think their intent would be to use it as backup for what they have. However, the township does also have the option of keeping that equipment if it has other uses for it, but it would continue to make those payments.
But it wouldn't be a refund of payments already made. It would
Correct,
just
and there's not a refund.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Nope.
I'll just add that that last part is very important to the township. Essentially, this equipment, we only have to pay for it, we only have to install it in order to run our own dispatch center. So the county essentially has done a countywide analysis of where this kind of equipment is necessary to provide dispatch coverage throughout Erie County, and inform the township that it would be unnecessary to provide the installation of this equipment in the township building as part of their services. But since the township has made it a priority in the past to provide our own dispatch services, the cost of this infrastructure is being allocated to us, as the county is rightfully not installing infrastructure that doesn't need to provide its countywide service. So I think the language of us being able to get out of paying for this, in essence, duplicative equipment, I think is very important. As noted in the EIP study last month, our dispatch service costs nearly $750,000 and only going to escalate, and that service can be provided by the county. So in the event that this board takes action to discontinue dispatch, as every other entity in the county has, it would be very important for us to get out of these payments at that time.
I should note also that the timing of the payments, I believe, is pushed back a year from what was originally believed. So I believe there's money in this year's budget to pay for these items, but there won't be any payments required until next year. And we set it up so that the county has to invoice us for each of these payments, which they'll do by January 31 of each year, and then the township has 30 days to make the payments. So that way, you know, it's not like an automatic payment that we have to submit and remember that we have to submit and then forget about it and then have them send a letter to us saying, hey, you forgot to pay us. We set it up so that we would get a notice.
With that, is there a motion to approve the Next Generation Public Safety Radio System addendum?
Yes, I'll move to approve that.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Groh?
Vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the Wegmans Tax Assessment Appeal Settlement Agreement.
Yes, I'll cover this as well. This is a settlement agreement between the township, the school district, the county, Summit, and Fort LaBeouf with respect to the Wegmans Food Market's properties. This has primarily been handled, I believe, by the school district, which has the largest percentage of tax revenues from property, so they have the largest interest. This is a matter that had been through the legal system, I think, a couple of times. There was a hearing and then an appeal, and then the appeal sent it back to the trial court level, and then I believe now, you know, before a second trial, the parties apparently have come to an agreement on numbers. This would resolve tax matters through 2018. And I think, as indicated at the last meeting, we had Evan Adair review these documents, and he recommends approval.
Mr. Duchesky, anything you'd like to add?
No, other than at this point, I don't know exactly the impact on us. It's not stated in the agreement specifically. we'll get a notice from the assessor's office letting us know what our portion is, because it goes back so far, there's multiple tax rates and assessed values, and so it all gets very complicated. But we have put money away because they paid these taxes under appeal, so 25% of the amount they paid under protest has been reserved, so it doesn't have a real impact on the operating revenues. And actually, those funds are sitting in a bank account at Erie Bank.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'm just glad this thing is done. It's 13 years, I think it was been, something like that. Not that we need to know, but it's been a long time. Glad it's done.
I would add, with respect to any motion, I would make it subject to the extent there's any non-substantive changes, because I believe the township is the first entity approving it. If there are any non-substantive changes, give myself and the board chair the discretion to approve and sign off on those. So we don't have to bring it back.
Is there a motion to approve the Wegmans Tax Assessment Appeal Settlement Agreement with the condition that no substantial changes are made between our execution and final execution of the document? Is that fair enough?
Subject to legal review and your approval.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll move with the conditions as stated.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Next item is a recommendation to the Fire and EMS Commission. I'll throw it over to Mr. Bach.
Thank you, John.
As our esteemed liaison.
Yes, newly appointed. This is based on the Act 172 of 2016, provides municipalities with the option to offer real estate or earned income tax credit to active members of volunteer fire companies and nonprofit EMS agencies through a volunteer service credit program. Active volunteers who meet the service credit criteria established by the municipality in consultation with the fire chief or supervisor of the EMS agency would be eligible for the tax credit. Each municipality may choose whether to offer the earned income tax credit, the real estate tax credit, or both. So we are here to recommend that proceeds to the Fire Commission for their review.
And this has been discussed at the COG as well, right, Mr. Groh?
Yes, actually, they'll be talking about it in August, but we've got to move ahead on this thing now. You know, they're still in the design phase. They may follow our lead on this whole thing too, so we could probably be a guide on this for what to do here in Erie County.
And I would add that the Pennsylvania Municipal League has created sample documents for both an ordinance as well as guidelines for qualifications of those credits, and I would suggest that supervisors ask that the commission review those documents and provide comments and input as to what they believe, you know, a prospective ordinance and or guidelines should look like. And then with that information, the supervisors can then decide how to respond.
All right, with that, is there a motion to submit a formal request to the EMS and Fire Commission, the Fire and EMS Commission, to review the template documents as provided by Mr. Shaw and provide comment to the board for possible ordinance development and approval?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next is financial security release request, Pan World Development, Latif Panwar developer. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you.
You still with us over there?
I'm still good. I'm here.
I saw
Pan World
Mr.
Development
X
has
fading.
requested final release of their financial security for their development on West 12th Street. It's the future Popeyes restaurant. Previously, the board has approved a reduction in their financial security for items completed, but there was a remaining amount that related to tree planting and grass that obviously couldn't be done until the weather broke. They have completed all those items to the township's satisfaction. The only issue with this release being that Panworld still owes an amount of $2,617.75 on their development account to pay for third-party services. At the developer's request, once we release their cash escrow of $7,955, Treasurer Zashewski will take that $26,1775 to satisfy those bills before we pay the remainder to the developer.
Matt, can you run that by one more time? So they currently don't have enough in their account?
Yeah, we would.
But they want what they do
normally
have
we would
back.
not entertain a release of financial security unless they were current with their account. Because this is a cash escrow, their argument was the township already is holding that money that is necessary. So we spoke with the treasurer, and he doesn't see a problem with keeping the township's portion of that money and then returning the rest to the developer.
It's, yeah, the thing is that the escrow, or they're in different accounts is what it boils down to. One's like an surety account, and the other one's in a general fund account, and we'd have to do all these checks. It's just easier to net it out.
So we do a full refund, and then
Well, actually,
Panworld Development would.
No, we will issue the remainder once the township is satisfied. In order to take that money from their financial security, it has to be released first. So that's the request before the board. Then the treasurer will keep the money that we are owed and return the remainder to the developer. This is only possible because they gave us cash escrow. If this was a letter of credit, it could not be done this way. They would have to satisfy the bill first.
so I guess you would just make the financial release subject to the payment of the amount due.
Okay.
Am I the only one confused by this? I apologize if I am.
Oh, I believe he also authorized in an email to do that process.
I'm sorry, yes,
So we
that
have-
was, the developer has requested it, and it is in your packet there.
So what are we actually acting on, Mark? We're acting to release $7,955? on
Yes. To
condition-
release the financial security for the project is what the board needs to act on. Then the township will remove their funds from that before the remainder is returned to the developer.
So just to do the quick math, 2,600 is owed to GPI, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and we have to return 7,900, or the release that is being requested is 7,900, did I hear that right?
That's the total amount of their security, yeah.
Okay,
The
so-
remaining balance then is $5,337.25.
Okay, so that's what we'll be stroking a check
That will be returned
for.
to the developer,
That's what's
right.
going, okay,
Mhm.
okay, now I understand. Okay.
Well, if you understand, you want to make the motion?
And Mr. Panwer is aware of.
Yes, he's aware, and he's
of this
requested-
mathematical
Yeah.
conundrum.
Correct.
Okay. I will make a motion conditioned on the statements that were made and regarding to what amount will be returned to the developer.
Cheryl doesn't seem satisfied with that motion.
Are you okay with that, Cheryl? Okay. Somebody do the quick math on that, give her a number.
I can give you all the numbers.
Correct.
Oh, God.
Is there a second?
Second here.
Mr. Bro?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bob?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. And trust that Mr. Waldinger and Mr. Zixowski know what they're talking about. Sorry I asked the question. Next action, the May building construction report. The next item on the agenda, May building construction report.
Okay, give me a second here. This comes from Julie Maggio from the zoning department. In the month of May, we had a total permit values under the residential of $2,060,775 of construction value. And then in the commercial end of it, we had $903,000 of construction value for a total of $2.984 million. The zoning permit fees were $5,900 for the month of May. copy of this is available in the zoning department, and I think will be online here later this week.
Thank you, Mr. Groh. Next is communications. Treasurer Communications. Anything, Mark?
Thankfully, I have nothing further.
Come on, Mark.
Okay.
Summer staff request, Parks and
Yes.
Recreation Department.
Yeah, I have one here from Ashley Marsteller from the Parks Department. She has some seasonal hires. There's a list of them there of 5 of them working as lifeguards at the Millcreek Intermediate School at a rate of $7.65 per hour. The effective date would be yesterday, so this is a retroactive action here. And this, of course, would be for the summer swimming program out there. Put in a form of a motion to hire those 5 lifeguards.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Groh.
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next is a salary increase request for Assistant Zoning and Development Officer from Human Resources Office. I'll cover that. We had offered the opportunity for zoning and development officers to become certified. What was the extra certification, Mr. Waldron?
Certified zoning inspectors.
And to incentivize that, offered a 1% increase to their annual salary for completing that certification. Ms. Maggio has completed her certification. All documentation was submitted to HR.
Yes, she passed the test and provided the certification to the township.
So this would be a 1% increase for a new salary of $48,584.91. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Is this just a one-time incentive?
This is just an incentive to obtain the certification. Yes.
And maintain it as?
Correct, yeah.
Gotcha, thank you.
I think it's great that our employees are doing this to get more professional status. I know our fire code and building code officials have them, and our zoning officials, so I think it's a great move. Put in the form of a motion to approve that.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Training request from the Planning and Development Department.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a request here for Matthew Puz Jr., who is our zoning and development officer, to attend a floodplain management seminar held by FEMA. The training will be held in Meadville on June 20th. It'll be in the evening, 6 to 9 p.m. The cost for the class is $25, and we would request that Mr. Puz be allowed to use the township vehicle for travel. Mr. Puz is the township's floodplain manager, and so this would directly relate to his job.
Any questions from the board? Is there a motion to approve the request?
Yes, I'll move to allow Mr. Puz to attend that floodplain management course.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is summer staff request from Planning and Development Department.
Yes, we would like approval to hire Bethany Civic for summer help. This would be her 3rd season with the township. She's been very valuable to us. She mainly has been helping us to scan and archive old records, which helps us to get those records out of our office and create room for new files. Also allows us to have those records accessible from everybody's desktop. They're searchable and able to be seen. I would recommend Ms. Civic be employed. She has another internship related to her education, so she cannot join the township until August 6th and would work until August 24th.
Is there a rate? Uses a rate?
The usual rate for the 3rd season, I do not have that figure, but it would be what the township pays.
Per the pay scale?
Per, yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Should be called the fall help request.
I'm sorry. What was that?
It's from August on.
August 6th to August 24th.
Oh, it's just 1 month. All right. Is there a motion to approve the hiring of Bethany Civic? Is that what it is?
Civic.
Civic?
Yeah, I'll move to approve that hire.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
Vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. I also just inform the public, the board did hold executive sessions on May 31st, 2018 and June 7th, 2018. Those are meetings with our solicitor and treasurer and executive team to discuss various legal and personnel matters. Next item is the MPD requests.
Request from Chief Height for the School Resource Officer Nate Spiker to attend the Navigate Prepared Safety Academy and Conference in North Canton, Ohio on August 8th and 9th. Travel by department vehicle. Request was forwarded to us by the Millcreek Township School District, who will reimburse all costs associated with the training. The costs are estimated. Registration costs are being arranged by Millcreek Township School District, hotel costs as well. Meals and expenses, 3 days, $162.25. Salary, 20 hours, $851.80. Total costs, $1,014.05. Again, those costs are going to be reimbursed by the school district in connection with his duties there.
Mark,
Yep.
do we need to have a formal agreement with the school district to accept payment from them?
This is part of the school resource officer agreement.
It's all part of that
Yep.
overall contract?
Yeah, and this is consistent with the agreement for these types of, him attending these types of things.
Okay. So a motion to approve the training as requested by Chief Height.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Is that it from Chief today, Mr. Bach?
That's it from the chief.
It's a short list this time.
He was on vacation.
Expect more next meeting.
Next is the volunteer approval request, Emergency Management and Code Enforcement Department. Mr. Exley.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our office relies heavily on volunteers for both our disaster response and our special events that we have throughout the township to both provide additional resources and keep costs in check for the township. We have a gentleman who has indicated interest in becoming a volunteer for us. His name is John Yonk. He is a Venango, PA resident, but he is a oil and gas inspector for DEP, is how we met him. He has emergency management experience as well as 8 years active duty military experience. He has helped us out on a couple well emergencies that we've had, so we have a good working relationship with him right now as well. He has passed his criminal background check that we performed on him, and I would like him to make a recommendation. He also does hold a CDL as well. I would like to recommend that we approve him as a duly enrolled volunteer for emergency management.
Does it require like a swearing in or anything, Matt, or is that? Sorry. Does it require like a swearing in or anything of that nature?
It does not. All it requires is for me to notify the county emergency management coordinator that he has been approved by the supervisors.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Thank him for his volunteer. Yeah.
And it's Yank, you said?
Yonk?
Yonk. Is there a motion to approve John Yonk as a volunteer of our emergency management team?
Yeah, I'll move to appoint that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Grove?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Solicitor Communications, Mr. Shaw.
I have nothing further.
Good. All right.
Defense rests.
Right to know report, Ms. Williams.
For the month of May, we received 8 requests. 4 were granted, 2 partially granted, 1 denied, and we have 1 still pending a 30-day extension for a total of 13 hours spent. There was 1 cost for a CD at $6.71, but that is going to be reimbursed by the requester.
Thanks a lot. The only thing I'm going to add, gentlemen, is the Embrace Millcreek Comprehensive Plan is still open for public comment right now until June 24th. If any resident would like to view the plan, they can visit www.embracemillcreek.com and provide comments through the website or directly to any member of the board or our Planning and Development Department. Anything else to go to the order, gentlemen?
Gentlemen, if I could?
Sure.
I'd just like to let the board and the public know that we have a tentative date of June 16th to start our milling and to kick off our 2018 paving. We're going to do a little something different this year. We're going to do all our milling at one time instead of in 2 phases. So the public will have to put up with maybe a little bit longer of a dusty road or a little bit rougher road but we think it's a better way to go, so we're not having to do this in 2 phases.
Is that the 16th, which is, that's a Saturday, the 16th?
the
The 18th? Okay, for
18th.
clarification. And that's weather dependent, of course, too, I
Right.
think, you know. Okay, thanks.
We will also be starting in the, just east of the upper part of Lancaster Road, and we will be working west. There should be, by the end of this week, a map that the public can see, the direction we'll be going with our milling for this year.
You can probably use Mr. Exley's social media accounts to get that message out as well. All right, with that, citizens to be heard. Anyone like to address the board today? All right, hearing none, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn at 11:57.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We're adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Williams.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.